Hello friends, welcome to Sekhar Academy. I want to share some important key aspects about SQL performance tuning. For this, I am starting the new video series. Okay, in this video series, I will provide some important concepts and steps about SQL performance tuning. Let's get started. Welcome to the SQL performance tuning video series. Let's begin the introduction about the SQL performance tuning. So to begin with the first video in this series, right? So I just want to cover a small introduction about performance tuning and what all topics developer needs to know with the respect to the performance tuning and what I will be covering in the rest of the videos in this series. Let's go through the agenda I am going to cover in this video, right? So the introduction about the SQL performance tuning and what is SQL tuning and scope of tuning, what questions will cover in this video series, and most important here, what all topics developer should know for SQL tuning. Started the introduction about the SQL performance tuning. So to begin with, let us understand what is the performance tuning in simple terms. It is nothing but improving the processing time. That is a process of analyzing and reducing the processing time is called performance tuning. So right, so the intention of the performance tuning is improving the processing time. So that is the process of analyzing and reducing of the each statement what it's getting executed. So that is called performance tuning. So uh, let's take a few real-time examples here. So we all know that the cash withdrawals in an ATM or like an online payment or like payment through a credit card or debit card or waiting for an OTP message for online registrations. So you can see n number of examples like this. The common thing with all these examples are all these things are OLTP systems, that is online transaction processing system, where the response time is more important than anything else. However, on the other side, we have another set of applications called OLAP applications, that is called online analytical processing applications. So typically, these systems will work on huge set of historical data to generate some reports or some meaningful informations out of the data. So in OLAP applications, the performance is not the primary concern, but rather than it is the information that we are bringing out of the huge data. So that is where we have another set of technologies like data science, data analytics, data mining, etc. Probably we will talk about all these things in some other video. So coming back to the performance tuning, yes, from OLTP systems processing time is more important than anything else. Okay, so now here, what is SQL tuning, right? So now let us understand, so in the simple terms, how we can what is meant by the SQL tuning. So SQL tuning in simple terms, right? So it is an iterative process to improve the performance of SQL statements, right? Definitely, it is not going to be a single step process. Rather, we iteratively implement some tuning methodology and keep on measuring the time taken till we get the expected response time. Okay, so that is meant by the SQL tuning, right? It's saying that iterative process of improving performance of SQL statement to measurably and achievable goals, right? So that is meant by the SQL. Let me show you what is the scope of tuning from developer point of view and from DBA point of view. Generally, at the development side, it involves tuning the SQL, the PL/SQL, and the underlying objects probably. So this may involve something like creating an index or creating some partition or rewriting the SQL kind of things, right? So I just given a very small list here, but in real time we will do much more analysis rather like than whatever I have mentioned here in this picture. So the SQL and the PL/SQL writes execute on the memory structure like SGA and PGA. So that will call it is like an instance. Hence, if the instance is not properly configured, that also may result in bad performance. Correct? So, and the instance may run on the server, and if the server is not properly configured, then that also might affect the performance of the system. However, the server tuning and instance tuning will be primarily taken care by DBA, but it is not it is but it is good from a developer point of view to keep an eye on the parameters that affect the performance. Okay, so that is the way I have yeah, given the points like server tuning and instance tuning and the tuning of SQL objects. So the server tuning, right? So tuning the server and CPU performance to see monitor the RAM how it is work considering, right? So and the network how much what all parameters it is considering, right? So all these things will come under the server tuning. And when it comes to the instance tuning, right? So under the instance tuning, tuning the instance memory parameters, optimizer settings to improve the performance. These are all aspects when we consider or to tune the any of the SQL query. And the developer point of view, right? So the tuning the SQL objects, so analyze and create index and rewriting the SQL code, and might use some Oracle hints, right? SQL hints and the partition pruning. So these all improvements done from SQL and related to the respective objects. So that is where the scope will come for the tuning. So, right, so what questions will cover in this video series, right? So the number of questions which you are seeing in the screen, right? So what all the topics I'm just going to cover in this video are, so what are all the questions that will get answered as we go through in this video series? Obviously, the first thing that comes in to my mind is how can I identify which query is taking a long time in an application, right? The next one is once I have identified a query, where exactly can I start with the tuning, or how exactly I start with the tuning? Is there any tools or any other utilities that help me to improve or find the performance bottleneck, or to find from where I can start with the tuning? So these all questions will come in our mind, right? So the next thing is what technical knowledge at the asset to the developer should I should read or I should know before starting with the performance tuning, in case if there is any is a function PL/SQL function, right? So used in a query, and if the query is taking a longer time, how can I find whether the problem is with the SQL or with the problem is with the underlying process sequence, right? How SQLs get executed internally. Obviously, when we talk about the performance tuning, we cannot ignore the index. Understanding the index will definitely help to improve the performance tuning. So we need to know what all the types of indexes and what type of indexes will suit for that, right? So these all questions will come in our mind when we want to tune the any SQL query to improve the SQL performance. What topics developers should know for SQL tuning? So these are the or these are the key topics you also should know from a developer point of view. If you are a person with a less than 6 to 7 years of experience, then these are the key topics good to know, not just from the working aspects and from the interview aspect also. Suppose if you are from a like a 12 to 13 years of experience, then it is must to know overall tuning aspect and all the key topics whatever I have mentioned here, right? So the SQL tuning tools, tuning advisory things, optimizer hints, what is explain plan, what is trace files, what is TK proof, so how we can generate the AWR, what is meant by the ADDM, and what plan, how when we generate the explain plans, what all things it will gain being to understand. So when we tuning, when we want to tune the queries, what are joining, what are the joining methods we have, how it works, and what are the partitionings we have. So which partition we, how it is considering when we are running the query, right? So how to understand the explained plan. So in the explained plans, what all key, what is the cost, what is meant by cost here, what all indexes it is running, and how we can improve our tune SQL performance using the with class. So how we can see the statistics of the query, and what is the cardinality, uh, like, right? So like there are many things we have to understand, right? So as a developer, right, so we should know these are all uh, key elements, right? So when you want to uh, perform the tune performance, when you want to understand, when you want to check the performance tuning of the SQL queries, I've just mentioned the some of the key and major key topics here. So that's what I want to share with you all. We completed the SQL performance tuning introduction, right? So I've just mentioned only the key topics in this series, in this video, and talk about the small introduction about the SQL performance tuning, right? So I hope this is helpful for you. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe and stay tuned for new future videos. And thanks a lot for watching this video.